I was staring at the email in disbelief. There it was, right in front of me, an announcement I had worked so hard to avoid. The promotion I had been eyeing for years was given to someone else, someone who had barely been with the company for a fraction of the time I had. I wasn't just disappointed, I was crushed. But the worst part, no one had even bothered to tell me why. I stared at my boss's name on the email notification, almost as if it was mocking me. How had I gone from being the one everyone relied on to the one left behind I had sacrificed so much for this job? And now it felt like it had all been for nothing. But there was something strange about this entire situation, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Was there a deeper reason behind the decision? Had I missed something? Just as I was about to close my inbox in frustration, I received an unexpected notification. It was from my boss, again. A subject line that simply read, "Quick question, please read." I clicked on the message, unaware that this one email would turn everything upside down, sparking a chain of events that would make him regret his decision and my exit more than he could have ever imagined. But what could possibly make a boss regret letting someone like me go? I had been working at the company for 5 years, slowly building a reputation as someone who could get things done. From the very first day, I made it my mission to excel. I took on difficult projects, stayed late to make sure everything was perfect, and always stepped up when others hesitated. My boss, Tom Harris, knew me well by now. We shared an unspoken understanding he relied on me. Whether it was a tight deadline or a sudden crisis, I was always the one who kept things from falling apart. Tom had been with the company even longer than I had. He was a seasoned professional, but there was something about him that always made me uneasy. He had an air of superiority, often seeming a little too impressed with himself. His decision-making, while mostly sharp, was sometimes clouded by personal preferences. And I started to notice that over the last few months. It was as if I wasn't the go-to person for him anymore, even though I had always been the one to come through. Then there was Erica. Erica had been with the company for just 2 years, and I had always considered her a friendly colleague. She was ambitious, no doubt about it, but in comparison to my experience, she was still green. She'd occasionally ask for my advice on certain projects, but I could see her ambition, her drive to climb the corporate ladder as fast as possible. And I couldn't blame her for that. We all wanted to succeed. But when the promotion was announced, it was Erica's name that was called, not mine. I tried to convince myself that I wasn't bitter. After all, she was a hardworking individual. Right. But it wasn't just the promotion that stung. It was the fact that I knew the reasons behind it weren't tied to her skills or experience, but rather to something else entirely. And the worst part, Tom never even seemed to acknowledge my disappointment. The day of the promotion announcement was a moment I had been waiting for. I had worked tirelessly, always putting in the extra hours and going the extra mile. My projects were praised by clients. My efficiency in solving issues was well known, and my team always came through because I had their back. I had thought that my consistent performance, my loyalty, and my dedication were the things that mattered most. But as Tom stood before the team, the words he spoke hit me like a slap in the face. "Congratulations, Erica," he said, as he handed her the promotion. There was a pause, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I forced a smile, though it felt unnatural. Erica seemed genuinely shocked but delighted, stepping up to accept the title I had assumed would be mine. For the briefest of moments, I couldn't even hear what Tom was saying after that. My mind was reeling. I had done everything right, hadn't I? My results spoke for themselves. I had given my best to every project, put in extra hours to train new hires, and even led several successful pitches. But somehow, Erica, with less experience and fewer accomplishments, had snatched the opportunity out from under me. I could see the satisfaction in her eyes, her little smirk that said, "I knew this was coming." And in the back of my mind, something told me she had been angling for this position all along. Tom, standing beside Erica, gave a brief nod, barely meeting my gaze. It was as though he didn't see the years I had invested, the sacrifices I'd made to ensure the success of the company. His eyes were on Erica, on the new face, the fresh blood, and not on the person who had been there through thick and thin. I tried to convince myself that it was just a business decision, that maybe Erica brought something new to the table that I hadn't. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. I had seen the way Tom had been treating her differently, more favorably, even in meetings. I had always believed that hard work and merit should be enough to earn what we deserve. But in that moment, I realized that the system was broken. And sometimes, it wasn't about what you did, but about who played the game better. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The decision to pass me over for the promotion wasn't just a professional blow, it was personal. I had given everything to this company. I had stayed late to meet deadlines, sacrificed weekends to ensure projects ran smoothly, and kept my head down during tough times. I had worked tirelessly, believing that all the effort would eventually pay off, that it would lead to the recognition I deserved. But instead, it felt like I had been erased, my contributions overlooked. I didn't say a word to anyone after the announcement. I went back to my desk, typed out a few emails, and finished the few tasks I had on my list for the day. On the outside, I looked as composed as always. But inside, I felt a storm brewing: rage, disappointment, and hurt all mixed together. What was the point of staying here? I sat at my desk that evening, watching the clock tick closer to the end of the day. Most of my colleagues had already left for the evening, and the office was quiet. It was in this solitude that I made the decision. I wasn't going to beg for the promotion I deserved. I wasn't going to fight to be seen anymore. I was done. The next morning, before anyone else had arrived, I sent my resignation letter. I didn't wait for a conversation, for anyone to try to change my mind. I didn't want to be talked out of it. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. I was tired of fighting for validation that was never coming. I had no intention of sticking around to watch someone else take credit for my work. I packed up my things quietly, leaving my desk as neat and impersonal as it had been on my first day. It was strange how little I felt, how little I cared about the place I had once devoted so much of myself to. In a way, it felt liberating, but also a little like walking away from a dream I had spent so long chasing. As I walked out of the building for the last time, I didn't look back. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was certain of one thing: I was no longer a part of a system that didn't value me. And in that silence, I found peace. It wasn't until a few days after I left the office that I received the first surprise. I had been keeping to myself, focusing on my next steps, reflecting on the decision I had made. It was a strange kind of freedom, but at the same time, I found myself questioning everything. Was I being hasty? Should I have fought harder for that promotion? Then, one morning, as I sat at my kitchen table sipping coffee, I saw an unfamiliar number pop up on my phone. I almost ignored it, but something in me decided to answer. "Hello," I said, my voice steady but filled with curiosity. "Is this your name?" a voice on the other end asked. I could tell it was someone from the office, but I couldn't quite place the voice. "Yes, speakings. This is Jason from HR. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing after your departure. I hope everything's all right." I frowned, confused. Jason was the HR director, and we'd spoken a few times over the years. But why was he calling me now? I had already resigned and moved on. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just focusing on the future," I replied, still not understanding the purpose of the call. "Well, that's good to hear. But there's something else. Something we should have told you earlier." He paused, and I could sense a hesitation in his voice. "Your boss, Mr. Stevens, he's been having second thoughts. After you left, he realized something. He wanted to talk to you about it." My heart skipped a beat. My boss had been having second thoughts. The same person who had so easily passed me over for the promotion I had earned. The same person who had ignored my efforts for years. "Second thoughts?" I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice. "About what?" Jason cleared his throat. "About how he handled the situation. He didn't fully understand the value you brought to the company until you were gone. The day you handed in your resignation, well, he was blindsided. He didn't realize how much you meant to the team until he had to deal with the aftermath. He's asking if you'd reconsider. I couldn't believe it. After all that had happened, after all the pain I had endured, now, when I had already walked away, he realized his mistake. It felt like a slap in the face, but also strangely validating. I had always known my worth, but it was like the company needed me to leave to see it too. I don't know if there's anything left to reconsider, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I've made my decision. Jason tried to persuade me, saying that they were willing to make things right, offering a new role, a better position, a salary bump. But it didn't matter. The offer felt like a last-ditch attempt to salvage what had been broken, and it wasn't enough. I ended the conversation with a polite but resolute goodbye. As I put down the phone, I felt a mixture of emotions. On one hand, I was proud of myself for having the courage to leave. On the other, I felt a bitter sense of validation. They had only realized my worth after I was gone. But that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few weeks, the calls and emails kept coming. Mr. Stevens himself reached out, trying to convince me to return. He even admitted that he had made a mistake and didn't truly understand the impact of his decisions until after I left. But by then, it was too late. I had already taken the first step towards something new, and I wasn't going to let myself be pulled back into a toxic cycle of undervaluation. Despite all of their apologies and offers, I stayed firm. I realized that sometimes people only recognize what they had once it's gone, and in my case, their regret would have to remain just that regret. The more I thought about Mr. Stevens' calls and the endless emails flooding my inbox, the more conflicted I felt. Part of me wanted to take the opportunity. The offer was tempting: a better position, a salary increase, and the promise of recognition for all the work I had put in. It would have been easy to say yes, to go back, to take the promotion that I had always deserved. But as I sat in my apartment, my thoughts a whirlwind, I knew I had to face the truth. For years, I had given my all to that company. I had sacrificed weekends, stayed late, and always went the extra mile to prove my worth. But even when the promotion was within reach, I had been overlooked. The day I resigned, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had finally taken control of my own life, my career, and my happiness. Returning to a place that had constantly undervalued me would be nothing more than settling for less than I deserved. But as time passed, the allure of their recognition gnawed at me. It wasn't just the money or the title, it was the principle. They had only realized my worth after I walked out the door. They had failed to see the effort I had put in for years, and now they wanted me back because they were afraid of losing someone they couldn't replace. It was flattering, in a way, but it wasn't enough. One afternoon, I received another email from Mr. Stevens. It was longer than the others, more personal. He confessed that he had underestimated me, that he had been too focused on his own priorities to see what I brought to the table. He apologized again, saying that losing me had been a wake-up call, and that he would do whatever it took to get me back. I stared at the screen for a long time, my mind running through all the possibilities. Should I go back? Could I forgive him and rebuild the trust that had been broken? What would it mean for me to return? Could I ever truly be happy in a place that had so easily overlooked me? I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the decision sink in. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the times I had gone above and beyond, and yet had been passed over for the promotion I had earned. It hit me, then returning would only mean going back to the same cycle of frustration, of giving more than I received. I couldn't do that anymore. With a deep breath, I typed my response. It was polite but firm, thanking them for the offer, but making it clear that I had already moved on. I was no longer the person I had been when I first joined the company. I had grown, learned, and gained a new sense of self-worth. Going back would mean diminishing everything I had worked for since leaving. As I hit send, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. The decision had been made, And it was the right one. It wasn't just about the promotion, it was about reclaiming my power and my sense of purpose. I had made a commitment to myself that no job, no amount of money, could make me break. As the weeks passed since I turned down the offer, I found myself more at peace than I had been in a long time. The weight of the decision, once so heavy on my shoulders, now felt like a distant memory. I wasn't looking back anymore. Instead, I was focusing forward, on building a life and career that would bring me the fulfillment I had always longed for. The frustration of the past began to fade, replaced by a quiet satisfaction that I had taken control of my own destiny. It wasn't easy at first. I had left behind a stable job with a good salary and a clear career path, and the uncertainty of what would come next was terrifying. But it was in the unknown that I began to discover who I truly was, both professionally and personally. I spent time with people who valued me for who I was, not just for what I could do for them. I began freelancing, exploring projects that truly excited me, and rediscovering the passion I had once felt for my work before it became a series of endless tasks with no recognition. And then, one day, I received an unexpected message from a former colleague, Anna, who had been with the company during my time there. She had left the company as well, inspired by my decision, and had started her own consulting business. She was thriving. She told me she had been inspired by my courage to walk away from the job that didn't appreciate me and to forge my own path. Her success reminded me that there was no one-size-fits-all formula for career satisfaction. I realized then that the decision to leave had been the right one. The company's offer, no matter how tempting, was just a quick fix. It wasn't about finding a better job or getting the promotion. It was about valuing myself enough to make decisions based on what truly mattered. I had learned that success wasn't about how much recognition I received or how high my title was. It was about doing what I loved and finding purpose in my work. And then, not long after Anna's message, I heard from Mr. Stevens again. This time, there was no offer, no plea for me to return. It was just an acknowledgement of the growth I had shown, and an apology for not seeing it sooner. He had changed, too. The company had shifted its priorities, realizing that the things they had valued most were the same things I had fought for all those years: integrity, passion, and recognition of the people who truly made a difference. Looking back on everything, I understood the lesson I had learned. It wasn't just about being passed over for a promotion or feeling undervalued. It was about understanding my worth and not compromising on it. I had learned that no job, no promotion, no title was worth sacrificing my happiness, my integrity, or my sense of self-worth. Sometimes, walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. It's a reminder that your value isn't tied to your job, your title, or anyone else's perception of you. It's tied to the choices you make and the person you choose to become. I had walked away from something that wasn't right for me, and in doing so, I had found something even more valuable: my own sense of purpose. The lesson I had learned wasn't just about the workplace, it was about life itself. And as I moved forward into the next chapter of my career, I did so with confidence, knowing that no matter where I went, my worth would never again be defined by someone else's decision.